Hi, my name is Cassandra. I'm with Honey Plant. Today we're going to be talking about repotting plants. I'm going to be demonstrating with a spider plant. However, this applies to all tropical leafy plants. You may just be deciding that you need a new look with your container. You might also realize that your plant is having roots coming out of the bottom and water is not seeming to perk it up as well as it used to. So first you have to decide whether or not your plant really needs it. Like this one, you can definitely tell that it's starting to outgrow its pot. This is in a 4-inch nursery pot. So the rule of thumb when you're repotting is you want to go up an inch or two in width and maybe a little bit deeper as well. So for something like this, you will want probably about a 5.5-inch pot, maybe 6 inches at the most. This is a 5.5-inch pot. So as you can see, this is going to give it just a little bit more width and height around the top and bottom of the plant. You're gonna have to decide whether or not your plant will do better in a ceramic container or if it will do better in something like terracotta. Ceramic will hold in the moisture a little bit longer, whereas terracotta is going to let the moisture breathe out through the unglazed clay a lot faster. So generally, if you're going to use terracotta, you might want to do something that doesn't like to sit with wet roots for very long at all. That might be something like a snake plant, ZZ plant, succulent, or cactus. You can go a little bit more extreme in the size differentiation with terracotta, but in general, the glazed ceramic pots are really great at holding in moisture, and then the little extra depth will allow you to have any moisture breathe out of the edges and through the drainage hole. Now, a lot of people question whether or not drainage holes are necessary or not. I say in general, it doesn't really matter as long as you watch how much you water in a pot that doesn't have a drainage hole. I will typically put something like horticultural charcoal. This is something you can get off of Amazon or in some garden centers, and you would just put a small layer in the bottom, and that absorbs any extra moisture, prevents fungal issues. For pots with a drainage hole, like the one I'll be using for the spider plant, you don't necessarily need horticultural charcoal. You just need to make sure your plant is not sitting in extremely dense soil. So unless it's a prayer plant or a fern or something like that, your plant will generally need to have a little bit of what we call amendments. Here at Honey Plant, we typically use rice hulls. Rice hulls are just the cast-off shells from hulling rice, and it's generally thrown away, but it does really great in breaking up the soil. Generally, for a leafy plant that needs to go about halfway dry, like a spider plant, you will do about 1 handful of rice hulls to 3 handfuls of just regular indoor potting mix. If you're doing something with a cactus or succulent, a snake plant, you might want to use something a lot more gritty, like a cactus and succulent mix that is just already just really gritty. But if you only have regular potting mix, you can do just a half and half mixture with rice hulls. Something similar to rice hulls would be perlite or orchid bark, something that will break up the soil and allow the roots to move around and get some oxygen. Okay, so we have decided to plant this in this pot, which has a little bit more wiggle room for the roots. I'm going to unpot this little guy. I'm going to do it over the bin, but basically you're going to want to dispose of some of the old soil, and that way you can take this opportunity to check for pests, make sure that it's actually getting a complete soil refresh. So we're gonna get some of that soil off and just out of the way. And as you can see, we've got some crazy roots already starting to swirl around. You're gonna want to loosen them just a little bit so that they know they can kind of explore and expand out. And this is why, if you've had a plant for a long time, you're gonna want to do this in the spring or summer, because that's its active growing season, and you don't want it to get so traumatized while it's still in sleep mode, because moving the roots around on a plant can be a little bit shocking. So I have my little soil ratio already here. So I've got about a 1-to-3 ratio of rice hulls to dirt. And I'm gonna take a look at my plant. I'm gonna kind of gauge how far down it's gonna go. And I'm gonna put in soil probably about halfway to the top for this guy. And I'm just gonna kind of keep a good handle on him. And I'm just gonna add in soil around the edges. And we're gonna tamp down. And as you can see, this can be a little bit of a messy affair. So I use an old plastic bin, and that helps capture the soil that falls out of the pot and keeps my workstation a little bit more tidy. All right, so we got it all patted in. So we've got fresh soil under the root system, we've got in soil around, and you do want to kind of press down and make sure there aren't any major air holes, because the first time you water this guy, it's going to be, it's just going to completely have an air pocket that will cave in like a little sinkhole. I'm gonna just double check that the plant doesn't need any little pruning, because sometimes when you're playing around you might lose a leaf or two here. That's all right. And I like to use a little paintbrush at the end and clean up the dirt that might have gotten on the leaves, on the pot, and this way you're not using your hands and breaking more leaves, or some plants have fine hairs that you could damage, and a paintbrush is just a lighter touch for something like that. So here we go. We have a freshly planted spider plant in its slightly larger container. It will work on filling this, and once it starts to peek out of the bottom, or you notice that it's starting to go more limp after maybe a year, then that's a good sign that it's time to go up even bigger. I will go ahead and give this guy some water. That will help the roots acclimate to the new soil and seal in all the soil. Let me know what else we can do as far as educational videos for you. We will be happy to help you learn more about your plants.